What a season it has been. As you know, severe weather, it can happen anytime here in Georgia, even in the wintertime months. We've had tornadoes in December and also in January, but the months of March, April, and May, that is the time when severe weather is most common here in Georgia. I'm Chief Meteorologist Chris Holcomb from 11 Alive here in Atlanta. Joining me, Ben Jones, the Chief Meteorologist in Macon. And Ben, you know, normally when we greet people, we say, "Hey Ben, how you doing?" But I'm asking seriously, how are you doing after this crazy severe weather season?
I think a lot of folks in the Weather Center just kind of want to take a little bit of a break, you know, and even if it's not warnings all the time, it's watching for the potential for that. It just seems like it's been kind of relentless for a while here now.
It really has, and not only for you down in Macon in Middle Georgia, for us here in North Georgia and in the metro area, it seems like it has been nonstop. And people have asked me, Chris, why is it so busy this year? I don't really have an answer. I mean, it's typical springtime months. Normally, we have busier times in March and April, but this year it has been May. And we've just had what seems to be like a lot of these spin-ups that have been occurring here causing tornadoes. Are you seeing the same thing in Middle Georgia?
We've seen a few of those. Most of what we have had here, as I've been watching, it comes through your area, comes down through northwest Georgia and starts to roll into our area. And then we're sometimes dealing with more of a straight line wind event. But sometimes we'll get a spin up in there. But of course, we're watching because whatever's coming from west central or northwest Georgia is coming here next. So yeah, I know what you're talking about. In an event, a lot of times it looks like, this is more of a straight line wind event, but then maybe still the potential for a brief spin up. And that seems to be playing out in a lot of situations.
Exactly right. And of course, it seems like we've had a lot of nighttime events too, which isn't really that common. I mean, of course, they can happen at nighttime too, but a lot of times you're thinking we're losing the afternoon heating. Once we get to nighttime, these should calm down, but they're not. We're seeing the nighttime stuff too.
Yeah, and going back to your point, usually I think, which again, we can do it any month, but March and April especially, I think of like tornado time. That's the main thing is April. And you're right, once we get into May, I start thinking, all right, eventually we're going to get that Bermuda high to set up over the southeast, and boom, we're in the summertime pattern, and then all the severe stuff is riding north and over us. But we have been talking about that on the air a lot because people will comment and say, why the overnight stuff? And we're like, well, we didn't schedule it. And usually you're right. Most of the time, if you see a nighttime thing, the good side of it is, well, this is going to weaken down some because we're losing the heat of the day. And it has, for us, taken the punch out of some of it, but it never lets us totally off the hook, at least not this season.
And Ben, you know, the thing that keeps us busy are, of course, those warnings or the anticipation of the warnings. I want you to take a look at this map right here. We have plotted all of the tornado warnings that we have seen in 2025 on this map. We have a lot that have been kind of clustered up in parts of northwest Georgia, as well as Atlanta southward along I-20, and then also getting down closer to Macon. I'm kind of zooming out a little bit. You guys have had some in your area there in Macon, and also south of you too, and out I-16 to make it that really busy year. Now, Ben, of course, these are warnings. Not all of those have been confirmed, but that is what has been making it a busy year as the National Weather Service is being able to detect from their Doppler radar some spin in the atmosphere, and whether or not it's radar confirmed or just radar indicated, that's why they've been issuing so many of these warnings, because these storms have just been exhibiting some of that rotation.
And I think you see a lot more warnings, it seems, as the years go on. The technology gets better. There's all kind of debris signatures, things they can pick up to get a better idea of, is it just radar indicated, or is there actually debris lofted in the atmosphere? And I think sometimes that gives them a little more, you know, the finger on the trigger goes a little bit faster on some of these. But, you know, fortunately for us, the ones that we have had have not been, you know, big bears, which is good. Of course, we don't want any of them. But you're right. Yeah. Zooming in and picking up on those things, especially with the technology, I think is the reason why we're seeing a lot of these warnings too.
And I do think that that's why we're these numbers coming up too, because I think back in the 70s and 80s when we didn't have the ability to look at what we call the correlation coefficient and seeing that lofted debris, that maybe there were a lot back in the day, we just weren't able to detect them as much.
Right.
Yeah. So
yeah, I totally think that.
Go ahead. I want you to look at this graphic as well that we have. And this is mainly for the 11 Alive viewing area. So it doesn't include the tornadoes that you've had down in Middle Georgia. But here in North Georgia, the month of May, including the one from Thursday, that spin up that happened in Henry County late afternoon or during the middle of the afternoon, brought us up to 14 confirmed, not tornado warnings, we're talking about confirmed tornadoes, 14 in the month of May. In April, which is usually our busiest time here in Metro Atlanta, North Georgia, we had 3. Before that, in March, it was 5. February was 2. But add all those numbers up, and we have 24 confirmed tornadoes here in the 11 Alive viewing area. And Ben, you know, our viewing area goes down as far south as Thomaston. It stops right at Butts County. You guys have Monroe County, and of course, Bibb County, Crawford County, Jones County, of course, is in your area. So we're not including those that you've had. And I know you said you don't think y'all haven't had that many, but has it been a little busier this year as far as the confirmed ones too?
I definitely think we've had a lot of tornado warnings. Here, I really don't think we've had as many on the confirmed end of that. I would like to dig in and see on that. Now you've got me curious and interested. I've got to go look at those numbers. But just looking at 14, coming off of only 3 in April and then coming in hot into May like that is amazing. Because you said, these are confirmed. This is not just, this was radar indicated, turned out to be nothing. So these are actually in the books then, right? Oh,
yeah. Those were the confirmed tornadoes that we've had so far for this year. So definitely a busy, crazy year. And again, we don't really, it's just that we have to be ready at any time, really, is what I tell people. You know, there was a rogue tornado in the middle of the week up in Huntsville on Wednesday. There was no watch. There was no warning. They weren't even in a risk category. But just a rogue tornado occurred on Wednesday night up around the Huntsville area, and it caused some damage. The one in Henry County on Thursday, that we were in a level 1 risk down in Henry County, and it did occur there, but there was no severe thunderstorm watch, there was no severe thunderstorm warning, there was no tornado watch. So that's why we tell people at all times that they really need to be aware that at any time we could see some rotation developing out of them.
Well, and that's frustrating on our end. I know you feel the same thing sometimes because we'll have these, what we're going to talk about, SPC outlooks, Storm Prediction Center, Norman, Oklahoma, and they'll put those out there, and sometimes you end up where nothing happens in those outlooks, and then sometimes it's like a level 1, you said there's no watch, and then there's a warning, and it's hard sometimes to go back and tell folks, hey, we never said that still couldn't happen. So you're right. I think the best case a lot of times, especially in these months, just be prepared for anything. If we're anything close into a storm system like that, there's still 1 or 2 that can reach out and get us that maybe we weren't expecting, but it's never a 0 chance. And, Henry County on Thursday proved that. Yeah,
and, we often say that, the tornado risk is low, but it's not 0. We still let people know that there is still that chance that exists there. And what Ben was talking about, and you often see us showing this on the air, the level 1, level 2, level 3, 4, and 5 risks for storms to occur. Let's take this full and you'll be able to kind of see these areas that we're talking about where, Ben, we've had a lot of those level 1 risks so far this year, which is just marginal, meaning that, there's just a chance for a few of those isolated storms. And we have had some level 2s and level 3s. The level 4s and 5s are a little bit more rare. I'm trying to remember, Ben, and I don't know, we did have a couple of those earlier in the year where we had some level 4 risks. I don't think we've had a level 5 risk this year. That is very rare. Do you recall if y'all had any down in Middle Georgia?
No, I think that one that I'm thinking about, which was the biggie, and I can't remember if it was March maybe, but it was that level 5, Mississippi, Alabama, and then dropped down to a 4 as it crossed the state line.
Yes.
And we were, that would have been parts of your western counties.
Yes.
With a 4, and then it was a 3 for us. And thankfully, if you remember that, I don't want to use the word fizzle, but it definitely, fortunately, did not live up to the billing of what a level 3 or 4 could have been. So, because I remember it was really going gangbusters in Mississippi and Alabama, and at some point, crossing this axis somewhere between kind of Birmingham and Montgomery, it started to fizzle a little bit.
And oftentimes we'll have a level 1 risk, and people kind of are like, okay, whatever, and then we have numerous tornadoes that can occur there too.
Right.
So, and what the Storm Prediction Center is looking for, they're just looking at those dynamics of the system and how it's developing. And we really see those level 4s and 5s more, or 3s, 4s, and 5s more in the springtime months when the fronts are actually coming through and there's a lot more volatility going on there in the atmosphere too.
Yeah, and I tell you, I had the opportunity years ago to go to Norman, to where the Storm Prediction Center is, where they're drawing these maps, and they're very serious about how they lay this stuff out. Putting these things out. And so I think a lot of times people say, the weather service, for us, Peachtree City, that actually is done out in Norman, for the outlooks. And then when it comes to the actual hot seat for the warnings, then for us, that is that Peachtree City office. So you're getting a lot of minds trying to think about the same event,
And I do love, we've been in these meetings, the National Weather Service and GEMA meetings with our National Weather Service meteorologists. You and I have been involved with those either through Zoom or in person. And they do try, or now they're trying to actually coordinate with the Storm Prediction Center a little bit more to kind of say, no, maybe you shouldn't include the level 1 here. At least they try to influence them a little bit, because it's hard when again, folks in Norman, and they're the severe weather experts, but yet we know that we have these intricacies here in North Georgia and in Middle Georgia. Like for us in North Georgia, we have the wedge, which is that northeast flow that it covers the northeastern part of our state. And when a storm comes into that, like what happened earlier in the week, the storms just fizzle, moving into that more stable air. So I think they're starting to have that communication a little bit more, and we can hopefully have that these outlooks actually kind of verify maybe just a little bit more, hopefully, in the future.
I agree with you on that, because I wouldn't want to be in that chair out there trying to forecast for the entire country as far as where we think it's most likely for severe weather. You're right. It's every market, every part of the country has its own niche as far as weather is concerned, and with the fetch from the Gulf and from the Atlantic and the wedge and all the things that come into play. Yeah, I'm glad that they're talking more, and hopefully that's always going to make things better when that happens.
And Ben, right when we're ready to breathe and rest a little bit, because the end of that traditional season of March, April, and May is ending, guess what we launch into now? Yeah, June 1st is hurricane season, and I know that I'm going to be talking to you more coming up this season. We did a special one of these talks here on the 6-month anniversary of Helene, and knowing that even though we don't live on the coast, we can be impacted here by tropical systems, and so we have to be aware of that too. So I want to just talk briefly, and we're going to show the latest forecast from NOAA. Colorado State issues one earlier in the spring, and then a couple of weeks before the season, NOAA issues their 2025 outlook for the season. And Ben, look at this. On average, we would have 14 named storms in a season. Now remember, that's a rolling average, a 30-year average that kind of changes. Like that average number was different in the 70s, but now it has come up a little bit because from 1991 to 2020 we've had more. So 14 is the average. They're predicting 13 to 19 named storms. Of those, the average would be 7, but they're predicting 6 to 10 named storms. And of the major category 3 storms or higher, the average is 3. They're predicting 3 to 5. And Ben, I did look back, and I was thinking, it seems like every year we have an above average season, and it usually does verify as above average. The last time we had a below average season predicted was back in 2015. So it has been a while since we've had a below average season predicted. But Ben, as we always say, it only takes one. And people always look back to that year that Hurricane Andrew came in. We went through the first part of the season with nothing, and Andrew was the first named storm, and it was a monster coming into Miami. So it only takes one, even in a season with predictions of lower than average. So are you making sure your folks in Middle Georgia are ready?
Oh, yeah. We talk about it all the time, and I try to, as much as we're always warning people and looking ahead too, I try to reassure too, and I was going over this list saying that doesn't mean that all of those are landfalling and are going to come here, because sometimes people say, oh, no, that's a lot. But you're right, all it does is take one, and I'm hoping that we can, as a state, as the Southeast, can collectively get a break after especially Helene. I mean, that's going to take years for that to turn around. So, but just to show you, though, too, I mean, even when you're already looking at the models, I was looking at a long-range model today that was showing 1 in 2 weeks coming up Florida, up the coast of Georgia, and the other model did not show it. So, I mean, it's already just seeing these things and, a couple of weeks in advance. So the good news is about a hurricane is it's not like a tornado situation. At least we do have days, sometimes over a week, that we can see these things coming and prepare for it. I'm just hoping that we don't have anything to prepare for. That's the thing.
And rest assured, Ben, someone in their basement looking at that model for 2 weeks out is going to post it saying, look what's coming, when they don't understand what these models are. It's going to freak everybody else, and then we have to come in and say, no, let's wait, because the GFS always shows something occurring out there that doesn't always happen. But it's our job as meteorologists to look at all of those models even far out in advance, and just I like to look at stuff and say, oh, that's interesting. We need to keep an eye on that. But it doesn't mean I'm going to post it and freak everybody out, because the next day, that probably isn't even showing up in the models anymore. So we're into that season where we're going to have to try to control that too. Hey, and take a look right now. Before we leave, Ben, I just want to remind people the season begins June 1st. It ends on November 30th. And we really start ramping up once we get into really mid-July, especially August, and then definitely September. September 10th is the peak of hurricane season. And then that starts coming down a little bit. And then we end there at November 30th. So, Ben, we're finished. Well, not really. We're never finished with severe weather. We're always going to have the potential for severe weather, but it's that traditional season of March, April, and May that have already gone past. But now we're headed into June. So all of you in Middle Georgia, keep an eye. I know that everybody watches Ben down there anyway. And then hopefully folks here in North Georgia will keep an eye on us here too. And Ben, you and I will be talking more coming up through the season too. Will you welcome that?
I will welcome that. And if anybody is watching that is one of those people that love to hit that post of a model 2 weeks out or put something out there on social media, please don't do that. It makes it so much harder for us to actually get the truth through too. So hopefully eventually that's a conversation for another day, but I know that frustrates you too. So
Exactly.
This is what we do for a living. This is what we're focused on all the time. Yeah.
That's right. All right, Ben Jones, always good to talk to you. We will definitely be talking soon throughout the summer, not only about hurricane season, but other weather impacts for the state of Georgia too. So take care, Ben.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate you having me.